Welcome to MindFuel. We're here to ignite your curiosity and fuel your mind with knowledge. Our channel covers a wide range of topics, from history to the future. We believe that learning should be fun and accessible to everyone. 5 Awful Genocides often forgotten by history. Number 5. The Solomon Islands Tensions, up to 1,000 deaths. The Tensions Genocide was a dark period in the history of the Solomon Islands. It was marked by civil unrest, violence, and ethnic conflict. The conflict began in 1998 when militant groups from the populous Guadalcanal province started attacking migrants who had come over to work from nearby Malaita province. The Guadalcanal natives accused them of taking jobs and land after migrating. The violence soon escalated into a full-blown conflict that lasted for several years. The clash resulted in the displacement of tens of thousands of people and the loss of hundreds of lives. Some accounts claim up to 1,000 Malaitans were slaughtered. As many as 40,000 more braved the high seas on small boats to nearby Bougainville in Papua New Guinea. The conflict was eventually resolved with the intervention of the Regional Assistance Mission to the Solomon Islands Ramsey in 2003. But sadly, the scars of the genocide remain fresh to this day. During the conflict, both sides committed numerous atrocities. Those awful acts included murder, rape, and torture. The militants from the Guadalcanal province were accused of targeting migrants from Malaita with homicidal rage. The Malaitan militants were accused of retaliating with violence and assaults of their own. The violence was fueled by underlying tensions between the two ethnic groups made worse by the Malaitans' migration pattern. The conflict had a profound impact on people throughout the Solomon Islands. For years after, many families were torn apart and entire communities destroyed. Sadly, even today, it may not be over. New attacks targeted at Chinese immigrants who own markets and stores in the nation's capital of Honiara erupted in 2020 and 2021. While these problems have not risen to the level of the tensions, observers are worried things could quickly get out of hand in the Pacific Island nation. Number 4. Hero and Nama Genocide, 80,000 deaths. The Hero and Nama Genocide was a tragic event that occurred in German Southwest Africa in 1904. The area, which is now known as Namibia, was home to the proud Hero and Nama peoples. Their genocide was a concerted effort by Germany to wipe them out and take their land. Initially, the conflict arose due to disputes over land and resources. The German settlers sought to expand their territory and control over the region. That desire put pressure on the indigenous people. The genocide began with the Battle of Waterberg. In it, the Hero people were vastly outnumbered and outgunned. This quickly led to a series of violent clashes. German forces used brutal tactics such as poisoning water sources. They even moved to herd Hero people into concentration camps. Many Hero people were worked to death in these camps. Others were subjected to medical experimentation and forced labor. The genocide resulted in the deaths of up to 80% of the Hero population. Today, historians estimate that number was as high as 80,000 people. The aftermath of the genocide was equally devastating. After losing the battles, the Hero people also lost their land and traditional way of life. Germans continued to exert control over the region. In the years following the genocide, they even expanded their territory deeper into Namibia. The trauma and loss of the Hero people continue to be felt for generations. In fact, the genocide is still a contentious issue today. The German government has recently acknowledged its role in the genocide. They have even begun the process of making amends, including offering a formal apology and funding development projects in Namibia. Even today, the 1904 Hero genocide serves as a stark reminder of the devastating impact of colonialism. Its modern update also exemplifies the ongoing struggle for justice and reconciliation in post-colonial societies. Number 3. Kurdish Genocide, 185.0 deaths. The Awful Campaign, also known as the Kurdish Genocide, was a series of brutal attacks that took place in the Kurdistan region of Iraq from 1986 to 1989. The campaign was ordered by the Iraqi government led by Saddam Hussein. It was an attempt to suppress the Kurdish population's autonomy movement. The Awful Campaign began with a chemical weapons attack that killed hundreds of Kurds. That marked the first time a nation had used chemical weapons against its own population. Over the next several months, the Iraqi government continued perpetrating horrific acts of violence against the Kurdish people. They included bombings, executions, and mass killings. The Awful campaign resulted in the deaths of tens of thousands of Kurds, estimates ranging from 50,000 to as high as almost 185,000. Many Kurdish villages were destroyed, and their inhabitants were rounded up, detained, and executed without trial. The campaign was widely condemned by the international community over the years, with many countries imposing strict sanctions on Iraq. The Awful campaign is still considered one of the most brutal acts of violence against the Kurdish people. Even today, it has had a lasting impact on the Kurdish community. In the present, the Kurdish population continues to seek greater autonomy and recognition of their cultural identity. They also come together annually to remember the atrocities committed during Iraq's Awful atrocities. Number 2. Cambodian Genocide, 2 million deaths. In the early 1970s, Cambodia was ravaged by civil war. The militant group Khmer Rouge made significant gains across the countryside as they planned to attack the capital city, Phnom Penh. Under the leadership of Pol Pot, the Khmer Rouge succeeded in their invasion in 1975. They declared that time year zero, marking the beginning of their radical communist agenda. The Khmer Rouge aimed to create an agrarian utopia by destroying all existing culture. They wanted to force citizens into hard labor with minimal training. Anyone who resisted or was suspected of doing so faced torture and death. Intellectuals were among the first to die. The mere possession of glasses was enough to qualify someone as one and mark them for execution. Over several years, the brutal regime's stranglehold on Cambodia resulted in the death of as many as 2 million people. At the time, that total represented more than 1/5 of Cambodia's population. The Khmer Rouge's reign of terror came to an end in 1979. That year, Vietnam invaded Cambodia with little resistance and took down the Awful agenda. However, Pol Pot never faced justice for his crimes. He lived for another 2 decades and died in exile in 1998. The atrocities committed by the Khmer Rouge during their 4-year rule still haunt Cambodia today. Survivors and their descendants continue to seek justice and healing. Since the genocide, efforts have been made to preserve Cambodia's cultural heritage. Many more Cambodians work to ensure that such horrors are never repeated. The legacy of the Khmer Rouge serves as a sobering reminder of the consequences of unchecked power and the importance of protecting human rights. Number 1. Holodomor, 5 million deaths. Between 1932 and 1933, the Soviet Union carried out a brutal collectivization of agriculture in Ukraine. The Soviets imposed a communist farming policy which led to food confiscation and prohibited private property ownership. This move resulted in a catastrophic crop failure that caused a reduction in farm output. In turn, it disrupted supply chains in the region and led to dire food shortages. The man-made famine claimed the lives of approximately 3.9 million Ukrainians. An additional 1 million deaths occurred in other parts of the USSR. Gareth Jones, a Welsh journalist, exposed the horrors of the famine to the world. He reported first-hand accounts of people who were living in utter desperation. They were forced to consume bark, grass, hay, and even each other's flesh. Western journalists, including Pulitzer Prize-winning writer Walter Duranty, were skeptical of famine reports. They chose to believe the Soviet-produced media that portrayed collectivization as a success. In fact, Duranty described famine reports themselves as malicious propaganda and dismissed Jones's findings. The Holodomor, as the famine was called, was denied not only by Stalin's regime but also by many other Western journalists who were granted favors by the Soviets. Over time, though, the true extent of the forced famine would become known. Unfortunately, Gareth Jones paid the ultimate price for his courage years later. He was murdered during an assignment in Mongolia. Today, many believe the Soviets were responsible for his death. The Holodomor remains a painful chapter in Ukrainian history. The impact of the event and its effect on generations of young people can still be felt to this day. The unnecessary famine was a tragedy that could have been avoided if not for the Soviet government's brutal policies. Millions of lives could have been spared if not for such an evil oversight by that Russian-led realm. Gareth Jones's bravery in exposing the truth is a testament to the importance of free and independent journalism. Even after his death, Jones's legacy serves as a reminder of the atrocities that can be committed when the truth is suppressed. Thank you for watching. We hope you enjoyed this video and learned something new today. If you want to see more content like this, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell. And while you're here, check out some of our other videos to keep the learning going. If you have any questions or suggestions for future videos, leave them in the comments below. We love hearing from our viewers and we always appreciate your feedback.